regime in a lightning offensive, reshaping the Middle East. The overthrow has ended the Assad family's 53-year rule and capped 13 years of brutal civil war. According to sources, the Indian embassy is operational in Damascus and is in touch with all Indian nationals. Sources have added that Indian nationals are currently safe in Syria. South Koreans gathered in mass protests against President Yoon Suk-yeol, who survived an impeachment bid on Saturday after he attempted to enforce martial law last week. Yoon's party boycotted the ballot, calling instead for an orderly resignation in an attempt to stem any further electoral fallout. Dr. Jaishankar, while speaking on the ongoing conflict in West Asia, stressed that the primary concern is to stop the mounting death toll and stressed the need for achieving an immediate ceasefire, paving more humanitarian assistance and facilitating the return of hostages. A woman who alleges she was sexually assaulted by Sean Diddy Combs has amended her lawsuit to include allegations that she was also assaulted by Jay-Z at the same party. Well, our big focus, Syrian rebels took Damascus and toppled Bashar al-Assad's regime in a lightning offensive, reshaping the Middle East. The overthrow has ended the Assad family's 53-year rule and also capped 13 years of brutal civil war there. As government forces melted away, footage from Damascus showed rebel groups entering the presidential palace, as you can see on your screens, escorting the Prime Minister from his home in a sign of the formal transition of power, and also freeing bewildered Syrian prisoners who had been jailed under Assad's rule. The fallen president fled to Moscow, where he was given asylum, as per Russian media reports, while Syrians around the world are said to rejoice. I must also inform you that the European High Representative for Foreign Affairs has said that the end of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's dictatorship is a positive and long-awaited development. In fact, the top diplomat added that it also shows the weakness of Assad's backers, Russia and Iran. Take a look at the details.
In a dramatic turn of events in Syria's long-running civil war, insurgents stormed the capital Damascus and have captured the city. Russian Foreign Ministry has said that President Assad has decided to leave the presidential post and left the country, giving instructions to transfer power peacefully. Thousands of residents have fled amid the sudden escalation in violence. For years, the war had been at a standstill until rebel forces launched a major shock offensive just 2 weeks ago. In a matter of days, rebels captured Hama and launched a sweeping operation across northern Syria. Their biggest victory so far, seizing Aleppo, Syria's second largest city, just last week. The rapid advances have caught many by surprise, reigniting focus on a conflict that began in 2011 as a pro-democracy uprising. Over 5 lakh people have been killed and some 12 million displaced since the war began. The war appeared to have stalled as Assad regained much of the country in recent years with help from Russia and Iran, but parts of northern and eastern Syria remain under US-backed Kurdish control. This offensive, however, is being led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a group distancing itself from its roots as an al-Qaeda affiliate, claiming to focus on governance and military strategy in opposition-held territories. With Assad's supporters, Iran, Russia, and Hezbollah distracted by other conflicts, the rebel forces are thought to have seized the chance to resume their battle against his army. As the Assad regime crumbles, the future of Syria remains uncertain. The swift rebel gains have shifted the war's dynamics, but the question remains: what's next in this decade-long conflict, or is this an endgame in Syria? Samia Afsar, NDTV World.
And for further clarity on the latest developments, we have with us senior journalist Dr. Wael Awad and Holly McKay, World War and humanitarian focused writer. Thank you so much for making time for us on NDTV. Dr. Awad, to you first. To what extent would you say Bashar Assad's rapid ouster in Syria raises the specter of a power vacuum in the Middle East? And also, does it add to further chaos for an already volatile region?
Thank you, Parmeshwar. I think there has been a kind of a deal already between the superpower to have a safe exit for Assad from Syria without making any bloodshed in Damascus or any major cities in Syria. So there was a deal between the United States, Russia, Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, and Iran to ensure that he can go out of Syria and give the country to the rebel forces. And that's what happened. That's why it has happened at least a few days before the deadline which was given. And the exit have happened, but the rest remain history, because the current situation in Syria at the moment, we can see it's cautiously very peaceful, but we do not know what next is the future for Syria, because Israel continued to attack a next part of the Syrian, next to the Golan Heights occupied, because in the pretext that there is a military zone and no more that truce between Syria and Israel exists, and they want to save their own security. So therefore, we are facing a very grim future, in fact, in Syria.
Let's also get in a word from Holly McKay at the moment, Dr. Awad. Holly, what does the fall of Assad mean for the future of Syria's ethnic and sectarian divides then? Is the country headed towards a new kind of civil war, or can reconciliation and unity be achieved?
I think, as I said,
the fall of Assad.
Sorry, go ahead, Holly.
Was inevitable. I think it was going to happen at some point. Nobody expected it to happen as quickly as it did. However, he wasn't going to remain in power and for Syria to be a peaceful country. There was too much opposition. As people called it, it was Assad Syria. And there was such a small circle of people around him that, as you can see from around the world, there are very few tears shed. However, we are in a honeymoon phase where there is a lot of celebration. There is a lot of excitement. People feel free for the first time in their life. But inevitably, that will come to an end, and people are going to have to come to the table and decide what kind of Syria they want. And that is going to be the struggle. Syrians haven't had free and fair elections for several decades now, and that is what they're going to want. And if another group comes in and assumes power and doesn't give the Syrian people a voice, then they are going to inevitably end up with another conflict on their hands.
Well, the transition of power does remain at the moment unclear. But Dr. Awad, as Holly has said, this could be a honeymoon period. But would you say, actually, could the overthrow of Assad be a precursor to wider regional change, especially regarding authoritarian regimes in the Middle East? What could this actually mean for other long-standing leaders in the region, like in Iran or Lebanon?
Look, we must look at it from the wider perspective of the American interest in the region. Since 2007, the United States have decided to topple 7 countries in the Middle East, including Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Egypt, and even Somalia and Libya. So we understand that this policy has been implemented. Now Syria has been removed. We expect that there could be more grim situation happening in Iran. So the next could be target is to promote extremisms and violence and more of Takfiri Salafist group in this part of the world, to turn it into a hub of a global jihadist. If the Syrian people does not recognize this as an imminent danger facing them, then I think the challenge is very tough and very high for everybody in this part of the world, because next will be Jordan, then Turkey, then also Egypt will be implemented and affected by the changes in the Syrian government. So I think, leaving aside what Assad regime has been doing against his own people, the main objective is to ensure the safety and hegemony of Israel in the region.
Right. Holly, in reference to Assad's rule, many say there was a nightmare and it's gone. But with Assad now fleeing to Moscow, what does this mean for Russia's influence in the Middle East moving forward?
I think it is a big cause of concern for Russia, because Syria was such a key place for them. It's where they had a lot of weaponry, they had access to the port in the rest of the Middle East, and potentially they've lost that. We do know that Russia is quite good at making deals, so whether they will sit with the jihadists remains to be seen. However, I'm sure at this point there really isn't a willingness, given the very large-scale bombing campaign that Russia carried out in Syria over the past 6 or 7 years. But I think that it also shows that Russia's attention was very much taken, particularly with the war in Ukraine, and coupled with everything that is happening in Lebanon and in Gaza and the weakening of Hezbollah. This was the opportunity that HTS saw to strike. And I think from my sources, what I've heard is the quickness of it even took them by surprise, with the initial goal to go into Aleppo, and then how quickly the Syrian forces were able to fall. The opportunity then opened up to progress to Hama, onto Homs, and then finally Damascus. But I don't think that was in the original plan.
Dr. Awad, well, it's clear that the downfall of Assad's regime heralds a reshuffling of global power dynamics of sorts. But would you argue that Russia and Iran have the most to lose, considering Tehran long used Syria, while Russia used Syria for strategic access to the Mediterranean, and as Holly has pointed out, for a few other things?
Honestly speaking, I think the first loser is the Syrian people. And I think the proxy war fought in Syria between the superpower have really yielded no good result for the Syrian people. If you're replacing a so-called secular regimes in Syria with an outfit of a militancy group and more than 35 groups of people, and 70% of them are from Uzbek, Uyghur, and Tajik, that means the future of Syria is already been planned, that it has to be a failed and a raw state and turning it into another Kandahar. So I think that is the problem we are facing. So definitely the axis of resistance, which is extended from Iran to Syria and Iraq and Lebanon, is also will be affected. Russia will be also at the receiving end, but I don't know what sort of deal that Russia have struck with the Turkish, that they have given them the guarantee to continue with their permanent military bases in the Khmeimim in Syria. Whether it will be remain there or they will pull it out is yet to be seen, because the reshaping of the Middle East is exactly what the American project is there. It is exactly what the Israeli project is there, and what Turkey is also aiming at. The annexing of Aleppo and Idlib province of Syria is a clear indication that Syrian future, as I said, disintegration and turning into the small ghettos, and this country definitely would suffer. Iran will be the first target for the next Trump administration, as much as Egypt, where they will also erupt into the Muslim Brotherhood, including Jordan and even Turkey in the next decade.
Well, Dr. Awad, thank you so much for always joining us with your perspective. We wait to see. There are lots of unanswered questions at this stage. Also, post 20th of January, many questions still remain unanswered with the Trump administration coming into the White House. But Dr. Awad and Holly McKay, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV and shedding light on different aspects of the latest developments. Meanwhile, India has expressed concern over the deteriorating situation in Syria, emphasizing the need for a peaceful and inclusive political process to address the grievances of all sections of Syrian society. But India's embassy in Damascus remains operational, and the embassy is in touch with all Indian nationals in Syria who are reportedly safe at the moment. Meanwhile, Bashar al-Assad's rapid ouster in Syria has raised the specter of a power vacuum in the Middle East and further chaos for an already volatile region, as many analysts have warned. In other news, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, during an address in Bahrain, highlighted the pressing challenges in the Middle East, specifically from Gaza to Lebanon and Syria. He emphasized India's commitment to supporting the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees, and also mentioned that India has provided aid to both Gaza and Lebanon. In fact, Jaishankar underscored the significance of regional strategic cooperation as well. Listen in to his remarks in Bahrain.
Right now, I think the issue is of ceasefire, is of humanitarian assistance, issue is of the return of the hostages, the issue is actually of the stopping of deaths. Where we are concerned, we have been contributing to UNRWA. We continue to do so. In fact, in recent years, we have increased our contribution. We have supplied relief material both relief materials, particularly medicines, because we are a prolific producer of medicines. So to Gaza, through Egypt, through the Palestinian Authority, separately to Lebanon, to the government of Lebanon. So we are doing something up there.
Well, in other crucial news, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri is expected to raise with Dhaka India's concerns over attacks on Hindus and other minorities as he embarks on a day-long visit to Bangladesh today. This is the first high-level trip from New Delhi after a massive uprising ended deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's 15-year rule in August. And Mr. Misri is scheduled to hold wide-ranging talks with his Bangladeshi counterpart Mohammad Jashimuddin and meet the country's de facto foreign minister Mohammad Tauheed Hussain as well. Well, switching tracks, Jay-Z has been accused of sexually assaulting a 13-year-old back in 2000. In fact, in an amended lawsuit that was filed, an Alabama woman has actually claimed the billionaire music mogul and Combs drugged and raped her at an after-party following the MTV Video Music Awards back in September in 2000. The woman brought a lawsuit against Combs in October for the alleged assault. She also alleged that another unnamed celebrity stood by and watched as P. Diddy and Jay-Z took turns assaulting her. Well, news and updates continue in a moment, right here on NDTV. Don't go anywhere.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
India's IT capital is always buzz. It's literally a city that never sleeps.
And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
It's a web of frauds, calls, luring emails, threatening messages. Cyber frauds have cast their net wide and everyone is at risk. We track the victims, their horror stories as they get conned online, extorted and robbed of their hard-earned money. How to identify a cyber fraud and how to stay cyber safe. What are your options? Fraud.con, NDTV initiative for cyber safety. Only on NDTV 24/7.
This December, NDTV Auto's Maiden Conclave brings together the brightest minds and leaders of the auto industry under one roof. From green mobility to AI-driven road safety, discover innovations shaping the future. Join us for an exclusive conversation with Sri Nitin Gadkari as we delve into India's journey to becoming a global manufacturing hub. December 10th, 4 p.m. onwards at the NDTV Auto Conclave.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here. NDTV proudly upholds its legacy of trust and credibility. According to the prestigious Reuters Institute's Digital News Report 2024, NDTV is the top-most news platform in the country. Number one in both online and offline reach in India, beating all its competition. NDTV stands for trust.
Welcome back. Let's get you a quick update from the United States now, where Donald Trump outlines sweeping plans to overhaul the U.S. immigration policy. In fact, in an interview with NBC's Meet the Press, the president-elect in the U.S. doubled down on his campaign pledge to carry out mass deportations from day one, suggesting Trump is preparing an aggressive opening to his second term. Trump also said he would end automatic U.S. citizenship for children born in the country, a move that would immediately be challenged in the courts, of course, but signaled openness to finding a path for undocumented immigrants who came to the U.S. as children, known as dreamers, to stay. Trump also seemed to address concerns over the independence of the Federal Reserve, saying he has no plans to replace the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. Meanwhile, Trump has said that he is looking to issue pardons to his supporters involved in the attacks on the U.S. Capitol on the 6th of January. In fact, Trump claims he will bring legal relief to the January 6 rioters on his first day in office. Trump also stated that he will not weaponize the Justice Department against his political opponents. However, he did assert that some members of the House committee that investigated the January 6th events should go to jail, accusing them of lying and destroying over a year of testimony. We have with us for a quick comment David K. Johnston joining us from the Rochester Institute of Technology. Thank you so much, Mr. Johnston, as always, for making time for us. Trump has suggested that there might be exceptions for rioters who acted radical or crazy. But, sir, how can such vague criteria be applied fairly, and does this undermine the legitimacy of any pardons granted?
Well, they may not be legitimate, but they will be real. The U.S. president has almost unlimited power to pardon. Trump has called these people who attacked police officers and were calling for the murder of his vice president, Mike Pence, patriots, and says that they are hostages and victims. So I don't think there's any question but that he will issue blanket pardons for the 1,200 plus criminals who were convicted for their effort to overthrow the government almost 4 years ago.
Also, sir, what message does this send about the rule of law and accountability in America? Could this decision actually set a dangerous precedent for future political leaders?
I think this is extremely dangerous. Donald has never had in his entire life any respect for rules or the law. I've documented numerous examples of where he has lied, stolen, cheated, violated the public trust. And somehow he is held up as a hero by enough Americans that he got a second term in the White House. We're likely to see prosecutions of people who've committed no crimes and a great deal of harassment by tax and regulatory authorities of people Donald regards as his enemies, because Donald believes that he is special. He is above the law, and he's the only person competent to run the United States. And in his own mind, he thinks he should run the whole world.
Well, he's also outlined sweeping plans to overhaul the U.S. immigration policy from day one in office. Your thoughts on that?
Well, he cannot take away birthright citizenship. That is in the American Constitution. It would require 35 of the 50 states and supermajorities in Congress to change, and I don't think he can get that. But his plan is very clear. He's going to remove people. They're threatening to remove American-born children if their parents are illegally in the U.S. And the results of that will be higher food prices, higher prices for meat, difficulty pursuing a variety of manufacturing processes around the country. So I suspect the deportations will be more symbolic than they will be mass deportations.
As always, David K. Johnston, thank you so much for making time for us on NDTV and joining us with your valuable insights. Meanwhile, in a surprising move, Donald Trump has also called for an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine just one day after meeting Ukrainian President Mr. Zelensky in Paris. Trump claimed that Kyiv is eager to make a deal to end the ongoing war with Russia. Meanwhile, in other news, South Koreans gathered in mass protests against President Yoon Suk-yeol, who survived an impeachment bid after he attempted to enforce martial law last week. Yoon's party boycotted the ballot, calling instead for an orderly resignation in an attempt to stem any further electoral fallout, although the opposition has said that they will try to hold another impeachment vote as soon as Wednesday this week. But you must also note that in an interview prior to the failed vote, Bank of Korea's governor warned the upheaval would delay critical structural reforms to help the country's stagnating economy, but insisted that the financial impact would be short-lived and relatively muted. Rather, he argued, intensified Chinese competition and impending US tariffs pose greater risks and threats.
저는 어제 밤 11시를 기해 국가의 본질적 기능을 마비시키고
As always, thank you so much for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. We'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.
NDTV Indian of the Year 2024.
NDTV नेटवर्क की तरफ से मैं आप सब लोगों का बहुत स्वागत करना चाहता हूं।
Celebrating the extraordinary.
Thank you, jury.
Honoring those who shape India's future.
For me, it is a great privilege to participate.
Meet the exceptional individuals who are NDTV's Indians of the Year.
Ananya Pandey.
Vijay Murugesh Nirani.
गौतम हरि सिंघानिया। NDTV Indian of the Year, India's polling booth officers.
आज का दिन जो फुट सोल्जर्स, प्रिजाइडिंग ऑफिसर्स जो टीम है उनको सेलिब्रेट करने का है।
A night of celebration. A night of recognition.
Thank you so much NDTV for this honor.
Thank you so much, NDTV. This means a lot to me.
A night of joy.
भगवान आपको लंबी उम्र दे।
NDTV Indian of the Year 2024. Only on the NDTV network.
New day, new show, a new experience. Start your day with the news, not views.
We bring you stories that matter
and impact your lives.
News that informs and keeps you ahead. From Maximum City, Mumbai,
To the state of governance, Delhi,
NDTV brings to you the best breakfast show. The breakfast show only on NDTV 24/7 every morning at 8 a.m.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
India's IT capital is always buzz. It's literally a city that never sleeps. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
It's a web of frauds, calls, luring emails, threatening messages. Cyber frauds have cast their net wide and everyone is at risk. We track the victims.